turning ego into learning. All right. So maybe the person's ego is, I want to be recognized. I was right and you were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But let's focus on the big picture of taking our ego out of it and seeing what we can learn.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Lab. I'm Henry Kirk,
And I'm Jonathan Aronson.
and today we are going to talk about conflict resolution. Now, for most of you listeners out there, you probably know that I have recently was laid off from Google a bunch of months ago, and I started a new business. And a lot of the topics that we talk about on this show tend to be related to my experience at Google and also my experience starting a new company. And what I would really thought would be helpful to talk about today is conflict resolution. And what the situation is that, when you're a manager of a team, you're responsible for like managing conflict within your broader team. You're the lead of it and you're responsible. But what happened the other day, what I thought was very interesting, and I'd want to get Jonathan's input is, um, I have equal partners, and there was a conflict amongst my partners recently, and I don't know if I handled the situation perfectly. And it also is a probably a great kind of topic to talk about today is like, how do you resolve conflict amongst equals? So, Jonathan, I'll let you kind of like, I'd love to know, what is the best way to achieve this, especially when you're equals, and you both have kind of like equal weight in situations. You have a disagreement on a project, or maybe a conflict. Someone feels, has resentment built up or something like that. So, I'll let you kind of kick this off.
Yeah, thanks, Henry. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening. So I think really the first thing everybody should realize, conflict is going to be inevitable. We all have different mental models. We all come from meaning that we have different experiences, we have different education, we have different ways of looking at the world, right? And conflict is going to come up, especially in the early stages, even more so in the early stages when people haven't worked together very much, or it's a new team, or it's a new project, and it's common. All right, so if the team members know that to be on the lookout for conflict, that it's part of the process to get to performing. Remember the old forming, storming, norming,
Norming,
and
performing.
performing, right?
Yeah.
Right. The storming is the phase, right? That's the conflict phase. Or in conversational capacity, our sponsor, right,
That's true.
is a conflict stage as well, where you are working through the when a team starts up and the leader's giving a lot of direction, but then it goes into a conflict stage before
Mm.
it goes into uh, integration, starts integrating, and then a high performance, right?
Hmm.
So, let me just throw this out. You, as a team member, Henry, what
Hmm.
would be the value of you knowing up front if the leader said to you, well, listen, this is the project, this is what's ahead of us, this is what we need to deliver on, gets all the kind of the basics down at the beginning, but then says to the group, I want you all to realize we are going into a phase where there is going to be conflict, because we're going to try to work out how we work well together, and not everybody's going to love how each other works, and we need to work through that to get to integration. If you knew that up front and you were aware of it, what would that do for you as a team member?
I think it would. I would not be surprised if like I came into conflict, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the value of that?
Well, I guess if I know it's coming, then I know to look out for it and to take action to perhaps resolve it.
Yeah. And maybe not make it personal, right? This is a
Mm.
process rather than being personal. But the problem that happens if you don't see it coming and you're in the middle of it and all of a sudden you're in conflict, it's usually because somebody's taking something personal.
Mm.
Well, let's talk about your situation,
Okay.
right? That you mentioned. Did it feel personal when you were being
Oh,
spoken to?
absolutely. Yeah, that's why I think I probably didn't handle it very well. I remember catching myself saying, I can't be defensive, like stay calm. It's not probably not personal, and I'm trying to dive into the root cause.
Right.
Yeah, but it definitely felt like a person. What started it was it felt like a personal attack.
Yeah.
It was probably just the way that it was phrased, and then
Uh huh.
I took it the wrong way.
Yeah. So communication's a tricky thing,
Yeah.
and you both have responsibility here. Okay. The person who was upset and came to you had the responsibility of not putting you on the defensive. Okay. Of not putting you on the defensive. That's the first thing. All right.
Okay.
That's their responsibility. And
Hmm.
if they feel they're going putting you on the defensive, stop what they're doing.
So if I'm on the receiving end of that, I should say, hang on, like I should say, hey, can we just take a pause here? That you're attack. I feel like you're attacking me, and let's just talk through it.
Yeah. I feel not you are attacking me. I
Okay.
feel you are attacking me. Different, right?
Okay.
Okay. Very subtle differences in communication, but it makes a lot of difference. All right. The other thing, if you are feeling it, getting that feeling so much that you're starting to feel the hairs on your neck going up, or you're starting to feel like pretty warm because, now you're getting
Mm.
angry and upset, um, don't continue the conversation.
And how do you
Why do you
do
think
that?
why do you think I
How do
say
you
that?
Well, because emotions are running hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tried to do that and it didn't work out very well. So can you give me some advice on like what to do there? Like because that person thought like I think when I had I was like I feel like there's a lot of emotions now. Could we like
Yeah.
pause and then just it didn't go very well.
Yeah.
Or at
Yeah.
least that's what I was trying to do.
So, well, you want if you're in a big emotional state, you're not communicating. So, what's the point of going on? That's why I
Yeah.
say that. Okay.
Okay.
So, how do you do that? Again, always think about you're trying to keep trust and respect. Keep that in the back of your mind whenever you're communicating to someone, right? So, what to do here is basically saying, "Hey, I hear what you're saying. I need a few minutes." All right, because I'm feeling attacked or I'm getting upset over how I'm receiving your
Mm.
message or you're talking to me,
Hmm.
and I need a few minutes because I really care about this topic and I want to be calm when I
Mm.
speak to you because it's
Okay.
important to me and hopefully it's important to you.
So you put it on
Please.
yourself. You put it on you
Yes,
to
it's
kind of just
always
okay.
on yourself.
Okay.
Always on yourself. Okay. Takes two to communicate. You don't want to
Mm.
communicate, guess what's going to
Mm.
happen? You're not going to communicate.
Okay. That's fair.
Okay. Now, the other person may go, yeah, but I want to talk about this right now. And you go, I appreciate this, but I feel it's going to be a much better conversation and I'm not ready to talk about it.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
Okay. And let emotions die down and then come back together.
Yeah, what I did wrong is I said, it sounds like you're very upset right now. How about we wait until you're little, a little less
Yeah,
emotional
you're
or
talking
something.
about them.
And
I don't like
it
people
just,
telling me how
and
I
it triggered,
feel and
well, yeah, it's
what
like
I
I was
need
trying
to
to label
do.
it. Yeah, I was trying to label it. And,
Uh-huh.
it sounds, like when I was, see, this is where the difference is like against an equal. It's very rare that I have experience
Yeah.
dealing with conflict amongst equals. So this was kind of interesting. Otherwise, if it was a one-on-one with someone on my team, I'd say, well, it sounds like you are this, sounds like you're that, and they would confirm it, and then I would be like, okay, well, let's do this. So I really didn't actually. So I tried that and it didn't work out very well. So I guess what
Yeah,
you're saying
well,
is just put it on myself. Like I feel like very tense right now. I would just like to kind of gather my thoughts and then we can revisit this and like an hour, a little
Yeah,
later. Okay. Very
exactly.
interesting. All right, great.
I definitely want to talk about this. I can't
Yeah.
do it right now.
Okay. That's where I went wrong.
Okay. Also gives you a time to pause and reflect
That's right.
before you go into the conversation, right? Okay, so that's the first part.
Okay, great.
All right, so now let's say you get back together and you go, so you say you come back into the conversation. How would you approach the conversation, Henry? We're going to use you as the guinea pig here.
Oh, great. Okay.
Well,
Well,
this is why we're doing this, isn't
yeah, of course.
it?
No problem doing it. So, I would probably, you know, all right. I would probably want to set ground rules that we have to speak calmly, but I don't know if that's the right way to start it. I may, because that's how I would usually do it if it was amongst my team and say, okay, well, I'd be the mediator.
Okay.
In this
It's
case,
called
I did.
setting norms.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Setting norms, right?
Okay.
So say, listen, I want to have this conversation,
Hmm.
right? And I'd like us to stay calm, not attack each other, but to just let each other know how we feel about this. And let's keep, very important, let's keep our focus on the big picture. What are we trying to resolve here? Let's
Hmm.
first talk about that. Okay. Let's talk about what it is as far as a successful outcome of us having this conversation. This is not just two guys hanging out and trying to work it out. This is a focused conversation to get a resolution to the conflict so you can work together to move forward.
I see.
Okay, think about what this is and how important is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important because otherwise you can't keep moving forward. I mean, you just
Right.
continue resentment. The person, like, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And remember when we talked about conversation capacity a few episodes ago, we talked about that people have a fight or flight kind of instinct. And they
Okay.
do it subconsciously. So somebody has to, go into this and say, all right, let's establish some norms. What are we trying to resolve for? All right. And then really listen to the other person with empathy. What's empathy, Henry?
Like putting yourself in their shoes.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Well, and what do you think is the value of doing that?
Well, you want to try to see their perspective so you can kind of get to that sweet spot, right? So you can,
Yeah, there you
kind of
go.
meet them where they're at, kind of thing, like understand
Yeah.
why they're feeling that way and whatnot.
Now,
And I think in this situation, I genuinely wanted to understand that. I think, like, reflecting on it, definitely, my trying to diffuse the situation caused more triggers. Try. I don't think I raised my voice at one point, but I don't think I ever
oh.
started to. Well, I was matching the
Exactly.
other
You're
side. Yeah.
because you're on the
Yeah.
defensive, so you start doing the same thing. And
Yeah, and then I
can you
caught
imagine
myself, so but
if
that made it worse.
voices if voices keep getting raised? What's it cause? What does that create? What's it end up happening?
Well, nothing gets done. Yeah, no one's listening to one another. Yeah, of
You start
course.
yelling at each
Yeah.
other. Yeah.
Well,
How are you going to
yeah.
get conflict resolution if you're yelling at each other?
So the thing, okay, so all right, now I understand how I could have better diffused the
Okay.
emotional thing and done it, right?
Okay.
Okay, so now here's the thing. If we both equal, oh, I see. Well, I guess what I was going to say is, well, if we're both equals and we're trying to resolve the conflict and we just establish those norms, then we start having a more productive conversation. I think what you hit on before, which I don't think I was raised during the conversation I had with my partner post the problem, the conflict was, let's try to focus on the bigger picture. And I don't think we got to the bigger picture until maybe 45 minutes into the conversation,
Yeah.
because I kept focusing on the smaller conflict here, and I didn't say, well, like, I didn't try to dive in. So all right, so if I'm in that situation 45 minutes in, and then I finally realize, when I if I what are some of the ways that you can just because you ask for the bigger picture doesn't always mean that you're going to get it. In the same way, like you've coached me a million times, like I don't always realize what the core root of the problem is until you kind of
All
get it
right.
out. So what are some ways that you can, or
Well,
questions to ask?
okay. Let's take the situation you're in. Let's
Sure.
stay in reality here, right?
Mhm.
What was the bigger picture in this situation?
It was a series of actions or reactions over the past few months that was
No,
building up. That was the, is that what you're asking?
no. I'm
Oh,
asking, what are you looking? What is what is a successful outcome of this meeting? What is this? Somebody had a conflict. It wasn't
hmm,
you,
yeah.
right? So, what did this person want in the end?
Oh,
What did they
resolution in
want?
the bigger, resolution to the conflict, like, and like there was like demands
Well,
made.
what was the conflict? What if there was no conflict,
Oh, so
what was going to happen?
the conflict was is that we're five partners, equal
Yeah,
partners, and many of us were making decisions and trying to like vote on things, and that person
yeah.
felt that their voice wasn't being heard.
Okay,
And that like and what was true was is that they would make recommendations saying we shouldn't do this, and then a month later they were right, and I don't think we acknowledged the fact that they were right,
okay,
and then like it just they felt that their voice was muted. um
okay. So,
and
so
also
really,
and
the
also
big
I yeah, there was a lot of little things, but that was probably the core of it.
okay. So the big picture here is how we make decisions, okay, and then how we follow up down the road, depending on the outcome of the decision. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, oh
Like,
yeah,
how do we make
absolutely.
decisions together that we
Hmm.
all agree upon? This is how we're going to make decisions. And if it's a case that the decision we make didn't work out, and a better decision was maybe somebody had a different decision to make in it, is that we acknowledge that as well. That we
Is that
acknowledge that and
important?
we move forward.
Yeah. Is that important, you think? I mean,
What do
now
you
I've
think?
learned that like I kind of learned that I think it might be like that people need to kind of feel like they're I don't, I'm not like that. Like I don't need to be told I'm doing a good job, but I think that like I wonder in my
It's
I've
not that.
noticed. Oh, okay.
What did we learn from this? Okay. It's not so much, see, this is part of ego, right? Remember conversation capacity, turning ego into learning. All right. So maybe the person's ego is, I want to be recognized. I was right and you were wrong.
Hmm.
But let's focus on the big picture of taking our ego out of it and seeing what we can learn. So
I see.
if we made a decision and it wasn't the right decision, let's come back together and acknowledge what we learned from the decision we made versus
Ah,
the decision we
yeah,
should have made so we don't do it again going forward. So let's not
that
make
was
it
it.
about the
Yeah.
person, let's make it about the learning experience, the
And I think that's,
opportunity
yeah,
here to learn and to grow as a team so we make better decisions up front.
I like that. I think that's what the person was trying to get to is that so at Amazon we had this thing like leaders should be right a lot. And it's very interesting. It's one of the like leadership principles at
Yeah.
Amazon, and that is the one thing that I think is very interesting because I think that people tend to take this as for me to be an effective leader, I need to make sure that if I'm an expert, that my suggestion is taken, right?
Yeah.
But what I think it really means, like the way that you describe this, is that to be right a lot is that you can be like you can make wrong decisions, but if you have reflect on those decisions made and then learn from them, that person that like maybe made that suggestion that it wasn't taken, that the next time there's a suggestion, they'll be like, well, based on history, this person was right a heck of a lot of times and we didn't follow a
Yeah.
decision. Then those decisions would start being made because that I want to use the word like more
Yeah.
trusted advisor, but I think it's just you have that pattern and that just shows you're an effective leader because you can do that. Yeah.
Exactly. And the other core values that a team should have that everybody is treated with respect and trust is focused on. That we keep trust for everybody. So somewhere down the line, it sounds like that this team member didn't feel trusted and maybe didn't feel respected as well, because they kept saying we should be doing this and this is why. Remember, you want the why in back of it when you say be
Hmm.
direct, tell you why, how you came to that conclusion, be open to being wrong. But in the end, if the decision was made for whatever reason, go in a different direction, then it realize you were right. Let's revisit this to see what happened so it won't happen again. But acknowledge that it happened, learn from that experience, and move forward. I don't
Okay.
think that was ever done.
No, no, but we're starting that actually. We
Okay.
realized that we needed to do that sort of thing, and we're
Okay.
starting that.
Great.
Yeah.
Because this is
Yeah.
where you're establishing norms. So the idea is to go back to the team, discuss what happened as a team, not as an individual. Don't make it about the person, because that's where it gets personal and people start shutting down or
Mm.
attacking, right? Make it about the situation. Say, let's work this way. There's going to be times we may not agree and we make a decision to go forward, and that decision wasn't the best decision. Let's revisit what we learned from this and acknowledge that we could have made a different decision that would have had a better outcome. So next time, and try to look at what we could do going forward that this won't happen again or be minimized. So, which increases our efficiency and increases our productivity as a team.
Hmm. So what you're saying is that most conflict arises because of a lack of communication and alignment.
Yeah. They
Huh.
and people aren't talking, people aren't negotiating with each other in a healthy manner. What they're doing is that they're attacking each other, the need to be right. Okay, I'm right, I'm right. Ego based, not what I can learn. I feel I'm right. Here's what I think, why I think it. Where am I what am I missing? You
I
know?
see.
All right.
I see.
So let's we only got a few minutes. We're running down here.
Hmm.
So what I want to do is I'd like to forward this conversation going now that, first of all, let's just check in, just recap right now what you getting out of this conversation to this point, Henry.
Better techniques for engaging during conflict for sure. I think you've I mean, I think you've answered a lot of questions that I had on how to deal with conflict when it's a peer as opposed to like as someone on your team, because the approach that I had used just caused more conflict to arise. So I think that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think also establishing the norms, but you bring up a really great thing that the once you if you come into that conversation and say, I want to get to the root of the problem. Let's just talk through it. Once you identify the root, then you can take steps and action to kind of do it. So, for example, the person had like some demands, and I'd said, hey, like that, that doesn't actually, I probably did this wrong, but I said, well, those demands seem unachievable, but how about like feedback has been, I've listened to the feedback and that like let's revisit this in a month to make sure that you're feeling heard. But I think that like that was like a halfway mark, because I think that what you're
I feel
suggesting
blown
now
off.
is like
You
the
just blew
real
me off.
yeah, I think the real problem, and I would have totally done, I would have had another one-on-one and said, hey, like how is it going, are you feeling it? But I think that the answer to the root of the problem is holding retrospectives on decisions if the person was not feeling heard and valued and listened and respected. And we are going to do that, but like we're doing that because we just realized that like we wanted to kind of see how things were going and correct from that. But that is actually going to solve the problem that this person had, most likely. So I guess it's, again, now that I kind of clicked that communication is key here, it's that you have to find ways to communicate intent, and then take steps to improve communication, which is like retrospective. So the question I have for you is, all right, this resentment was probably, or this uneasiness was building up in this person for a few months. I never noticed it. What are some ways that I can notice that there is a conflict there so I can like try to engage it?
All right. Well, one, this person needs to take personal responsibility as well. Okay. Again, take that outline, for instance, on conversational capacity, pass around the team members. Let's talk about how we're going to communicate.
Hmm.
be aware, in this case, this person would shut down and wouldn't feel heard and would shut down. Nobody's inviting them into the conversation. Hey, what do you think? Why do you think it? We care about what you're saying, but let's see what we can learn from this and make the best decision. Okay, bring them into the conversation. Don't let
Okay.
them be quiet. Make sure all voices are heard,
Hmm.
especially in a small team.
This is
Especially in
great.
a small team.
This is
Okay.
great.
And let everybody know it's their responsibility to talk up and let's work this out. Nobody's wrong here. We're just trying to figure out the best way to go forward, and we want to make sure everybody's heard. So down the road, somebody says, "Oh, well, I told you to do that, and you didn't do that. You weren't listening to me."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that
Right?
makes a
So
lot of
you want to
sense.
bring them in. Say, "Well, we brought you in. We asked for
Mm.
your opinion. You didn't give it. What did you want us to think?" Now, the other part of this is how now do you get back in alignment?
Okay.
All right. And I just want to kind of spend a few minutes on this and then we'll need to wrap it. So, how do you think let me coach you. How do you think, Henry, you now with what we just discussed and what you maybe have learned here, how do you now get back in alignment with this person?
So I think we need to, establish those norms. I think we need to, let them know that their feedback is heard and valued. Like literally, we're
Yep.
going to be doing some retrospectives on the
Yeah.
last, 4 months of being in business or so, or whatever
Great.
the time period is, and then that will allow us to kind of like identify these problems. But also, I think that like you have a really good point. Like I personally maybe didn't necessarily need to be, like I don't maybe I would make us yeah I guess like my experiences lead me to behave a certain way and theirs
Hmm.
experience a different way and I wasn't
Different mental
acknowledging
model.
their mental model there and so I was under the assumption that
Uh,
maybe they were like me, I have this problem, and do that, but that makes a heck of a lot of sense. So I think now it's just communicating to bring it back into alignment
yeah.
and make sure that we're
All
all
right.
there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I would go to the person. This how would you like to hear how I would do it?
yeah, let's do
Okay.
it.
All right. All right. You're the person, and I would go, Henry. First of all, ask permission. Right? Say, I realized we got into a fairly heated discussion. I wasn't happy about that discussion and what happened, and I was wondering if you'd be open for us to talk about this. Um, so we can kind of avoid this from ever happening again if possible,
Yeah,
right? That's how I would open it up. And then I'd lead with that empathy. I recognize you are upset. I recognize we may not have acknowledged that this situation happened. We didn't get the outcome that we could have taken a better outcome that you suggested and give us space to learn from this experience. All right. And for that, I'm sorry. I really am. Because
yeah,
my intention is for us to work together, all right, as a team. Everybody is heard, all right, and there might be times we make bad decisions, but at least let's circle back around and talk about what happened, what we could have done differently so we don't do it again, and acknowledge that, not necessarily focusing on you having the best idea, but acknowledge that we didn't make the best decision as a team and we could have made a better
yeah.
decision.
Yeah,
Okay, so it doesn't happen. And then say, are you open? Can we talk about this?
yeah.
Ask permission in a way. And then once they
Okay.
go, well, yeah, sure. And I was like, so first I want to understand, how did you feel about what happened? Allow them to be able to express their feelings and emotions around it. And just listen. Don't interrupt. Just be there with the person. Okay. Listening to learn. Okay. Ask open ended questions if you're not sure, inquiring for insight. Right. And then say, well, what I'd like to do going forward is establish some norms around this. And then, let's get back in alignment. And express confidence in that person. I appreciate you being on the team. I never want to feel underappreciated. That is never my intention. And what I'd like to do is just work this out so we go forward, because I'm not saying we're going to have differences of opinion going forward. I'm not going to say that. But let's create some norms and treat each other with trust and respect so we have a high level of productivity and we're efficient in the way we're working through conflict.
Amazing.
And then say, what do you think?
This is awesome. I know we have a minute left, so
Yeah.
I'll end it with this. This has been
One last
phenomenal.
thing. At
Yeah.
the end of the conversation, you want to make sure you do a review of it so you're
Okay.
both aligned
Yeah.
and the actions you're going to take moving forward. Okay.
Fantastic.
Confirm both those things.
Fantastic. This has been a very helpful episode. I hope others got a lot out of it. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button so you can get more episodes. We'll do a follow up in the future, and I'll let everyone know. Jonathan will quiz me and see if I did the resolution correctly. And Jonathan can also do these types of group or one-on-one conflict resolution, coaching. His contact info is in the description. He's amazing. He's been my coach for a long time. I highly recommend him. And, so please reach out to him if you're interested. You've been listening to the Leadership Lab. I'm Henry Kirk.
And I'm Jonathan Aronson.
All right. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Take care,
Bye.
everyone.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.